Good morning, seventh grade. I'm going to do a quick recap of finding the area of circles for those of you who are just jumping in late because of technology issues or just because you've jumped in late. So, we have been learning about circles, and there's a couple of vocabulary words that you need to be familiar with when it comes to circles. On this circle, don't make fun of my circle, I know it's not perfect. The line segment that is red, that is half of the circle, it starts here at the center of the circle and goes to the outside, is called the radius. Okay? So we always are going to use the variable r to stand for the radius. So that should be pretty easy. The word starts with r and we use the variable r. And then this blue line segment that goes across the circle through the center is called the diameter. Now, the relationship between the radius and the diameter is that the radius is always half of the diameter, or, and I have this down here in a thought bubble at the bottom, or the diameter is always 2 times the radius. So in this picture, I could figure out what the diameter is pretty easily. If I know that the radius is 5, as that's labeled here in the picture, if the radius is 5, the diameter is 2 times that. So what's 2 times 5? 10. So the diameter of this circle is 10. An easier way to remember that, if you get confused with the vocabulary words, is diameter is a longer word. There are more letters in the word diameter than there are in radius. So if you want to remember it that way, go for it. But the radius is half of the diameter. Diameter is always 2 times the radius. Okay? So we have a formula or an equation that we use when we are trying to find the area of a circle. Now, friendly reminder that area is this entire area inside of the circle. So filling, as if I was going to fill in that whole circle, that's what we're trying to find. We're trying to find the area. Area is the same thing that we're talking about if we are trying to put carpet down in an apartment, or we are trying to wrap a present and need to know how much wrapping paper we need, okay? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about area. So here's the equation that we've been using for area of a circle, and this is always going to be true. Area equals, so that big A stands for area. Area of a circle equals pi r squared. Okay, a couple of things before you freak out and think this looks scary. It's not scary. We just need to know how to translate the symbols that we're given. I already said that this capital A stands for area. Pi, this funny little symbol, is a special number in math that is the ratio between the circumference and the diameter of a circle. It is a number that goes on forever, but the digits that we use to stand in for pi, and you'll see them in the directions there as well, are 3.14. There are an infinite number of digits after that 0.14, but in seventh grade math especially, we're just going to be using those first 3 digits. And so we're going to replace this funny little symbol that stands for or means pi. Instead of using that funny symbol, we're going to actually use the number 3.14. So you'll see that in your directions, it even reminded you to use 3.14 to represent pi, or to stand in for pi, okay? So I'm going to color code a couple of things. So we know that 3.14 is going to be going in for pi, okay? Then we talked about a minute ago that we're using the letter or variable r for radius. So in this situation, I know that I'm going to, instead of pi, that pi symbol, I'm going to write 3.14 3.14. So that's my start. And then we need to talk about what to do with this r squared. So when we see r with this little number above it, the way that we say that is r squared, or we can say r to the second power. We know that the r stands for whatever radius we were given. We were given the number 5 for the radius. Let's take a look over here really quick on the side, just to remind ourselves what r squared means. If we see r squared, or r to the second power, that means take the number that I was given for r times that number. This little 2 does not mean multiply r by 2. It means multiply r by itself twice. Notice that I went further, and if it was r to the third power, or r cubed, it would be r, a number, times itself again. So just a friendly reminder, we should have seen some exponents back in 6th grade, but if you had forgotten that, friendly reminder for yourself there. So we know that, we'll use blue. We know that r is the radius, so we're going to be using this number. Should have actually used red. Trying to keep my colors consistent. R is my radius, so we're going to use this number 5 to stand in for r. So here we go. I'm going to, instead of r now, I'm writing 5 because my radius is 5. And then I know it's 5 to the second power, or 5 squared. Now, does this mean 5 times 2? No, it does not mean that. This means, let me see if I can do my little eraser really quick. Remember, this means 5 times 5, 5 times itself. That's what that exponent, that little 2 at the top, means. So now that I know this, a couple of things that I can do. So 3.14 stays the same. Multiplication is happening because I know that at the very beginning, pi and r were squished together. That means there's imaginary multiplication happening between them. So 3.14 times, I can do 5 times 5 in my head. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop down what I know 5 times 5 is. That's 25. So still keeping things color-coded, this was the result of radius squared, or radius to the second power, and that 3.14 is staying the same because we're using 3.14 in 7th grade math to stand for pi. So now I just have one more step, and lucky you, I'm going to use my handy-dandy calculator here to do that last step of multiplication. So I need to type in 3.14 times 25. And so my answer is 78.5. The only thing that I need to include is what was I measuring from the beginning. When I look back over here to the picture of my circle, I was given 5 yards as the radius. So here's the only thing that changes. I need to include yards in my answer. And since I was finding the area of something, this is how we write anything that is an area. We always have to say the units to the second power, or units squared. So my final answer, if it's an area, it's going to be yards squared. So for this one, the area is 78.5 yards squared. You can repeat this process for any radius that you are given. Quick thing, what if we have a circle, and instead of giving me the radius, they gave me the diameter. Let's say they tell me that the diameter is 14 inches. Should we panic? Should we freak out? Absolutely not. We just need to remember a couple of things that are true about circles and the relationship between diameter and radius. So the equation for finding area has not changed, okay? I'm still being asked to find the area of this circle. But there's not a d for diameter in the equation, is there? There's only that pi symbol, and then there's radius squared. So I still need my radius. to find the area. So I just need to think to myself, okay, if the diameter is 14, what is my radius? I know that the radius is half of the diameter. So you're thinking to yourself, what is half of 14? You guys are genius 7th graders. You know that half of 14 is 7. So now you can do exactly what we did for that first problem. We're going to still remember that we're using 3.14 for pi. And then instead of the r, we know that our radius is 7. So 7, and don't forget that it's 7 squared. Then I can do all of my same moves. I'm just going to go ahead and go a little bit faster and not color-coded. I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is 7 times 7, which is 49. I'm going to drop that down. All right, then my last step is 3.14 times 49. Again, pull out that handy-dandy calculator. Boom, 153.86. 153.86. What was I measuring in? Inches. And then what's that new thing that we have to do if we're talking about area? You know that your answer always needs to be in units squared, or units to the second power. So same process. The only extra step was they gave me the diameter instead of the radius. So I had to think, okay, half of the diameter to find the radius, which was 7 inches. Substituted that into my area equation, did some multiplication, and figured out the area. Hopefully that clears up any questions that you had about area of circles, and you feel ready to do it on your own.